Hi, my name is Suzie Phillips. I have a PhD in microbiology and molecular genetics. I'm here at the Faith and Science Conference in beautiful St. George, Utah. Today, the information that I shared with the conference was about complexity, about the uniqueness of human cells, the uniqueness of bacteria cells, even the simplest cells in the world, and how all that complexity and almost every protein that we find made in bacteria cells are actually part of a very complicated system. But that system, even every single part, if it was missing one of those parts, wouldn't function well. The fact that this diversity is present even in the simplest cells points to the idea that the evolutionary theory of how these proteins evolved and that they came up over time and that they were modified doesn't actually fit the data. The data that these very complicated cells are present, the very complicated systems of how DNA is utilized and how proteins are produced. And so this level of complexity is actually a bit of data that doesn't fit within the evolutionary model. I talked about different types of data that didn't fit within the evolutionary model, and one of those is the capacity of the human brain. The human brain is an evolutionary anomaly, and the methodology of evolution cannot account for the functionality of the human brain, because according to evolution, we derive characteristics and adaptations that are necessary to help us survive in our environment. But there's no environment that we can conceive of that would have required the human brain to develop higher math capacities or music capacity or love or joy. None of those things are necessary for reproduction, and yet they are promises of God. Paul says that God has not left himself without testimony. Instead, he gives you food to eat, he makes the crops produce food, and he fills your hearts with joy. And this joy, the complexities of the human mind are evidences, according to Paul, as well as according to science, that the evolutionary theory can't account for the origin of that information. Additionally, I talked about how much faith we really need and how much data we really should expect. That God himself asks for us to believe, and he says in Hebrews that without faith it is impossible to please God, and that he's given us abundant amount of evidence that support what he said about himself, that he is the creator, that he created Adam and Eve, that he created in 6 days. These are things that he says, and Christ himself reiterates, and there's abundant data. And so I beg the audience to consider that data and to allow their faith to grow, and to, based on that data, to not want to get rid of the plain and simple truth that God's our creator.